Welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday Creator Convos. I'm Noel Marshall, and our guest tonight is Mare Cromwell, Visionary and Co-Webweaver of the 1000 Goddesses Gathering Global Grid. And she will share about Mother Gaia's call for Sacred Balance Global Grid, which is taking place on March 20th, 2022. And before we do that, we're going to tell you a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence, followed by the Co-Creators Convergence at the first Global Goddess Gathering in 2016. It's going to be a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us.
Anyway, so what I'd like to do is start off with a blessing and then a brief meditation. And hopefully the blessing might even help with some of the technical difficulties. Clear out all the mischief makers. Oh, Creator, great mystery source, please bless us here within this discussion this evening with all these beautiful, beautiful people. Please hold us in sacred space for our highest good, for divine plan alignment. Ho. Calling out to Mother Gaia. Ho. Ho, Mama. Ho, Mama. We are your sacred children here, different parts of the world, different parts of the continent. Please bless us, Mother, and bless this discussion tonight with all that we need for our highest good, for divine plan alignment. Ho. Calling out to all the spirit teams that I work closely with, who have asked me to do the 1000 Goddesses Gathering Global Grid and the other spiritual global grids that are coming down the pipeline, so to speak, and the Great Mother Love Way course. Please bless us tonight with your love, your blessings, and all the divine masculine teams who wish to support us in sacred space here. We humbly, humbly invite you to join us. Oh, thank you. And now inviting you all to a very brief meditation. I encourage you to take a deep breath in. Just gently exhale that breath. And take another deep breath into the depths of your abdominal area. And then exhale that breath. And I want you to bring your focus to your heart. And just feel yourself dropping into your incredibly beautiful heart space. Beautiful. And now I want you to visualize that there is a cord of energy running down your spine. It can be any color that comes to you. And when this cord of energy or ribbon of energy reaches your tailbone, visualize the end of this ribbon of energy dropping all the way down to the very heart of our planet, to the heart of Mother Gaia. And when it reaches her heart, visualize her heart opening up and grasping the end of this beautiful cord of energy. She's bringing it straight to the very center of her. That is how much she loves us. And then take another deep breath in. And then gently exhale that breath. And now I want you to bring your focus back to your heart and feel in your heart all the love and gratitude that you have for Mother Gaia. All the water that we've been able to drink, all the food we've been able to eat, the beautiful air that we breathe. All of this is a gift from Mother and all the beautiful sacred seen and unseen beings here on earth. So feel in your heart this love and gratitude that you have for Mother. And send it down, this love cord connection from your tailbone and your root chakra straight to Mother's heart. Send this love and gratitude straight down to her heart. Feel yourself anchoring to her heart at a whole new level. Beautiful. And now call out to Mother. She's very aware of what you're doing. Call out to her and ask her to send her love back up this love cord connection, straight up into your energy body, straight to your heart. Open yourself up to her love and her healing energies. Beautiful. And then one more time, from your heart, send your love and gratitude to Mother. The very fact that you have a physical body is a gift from her. Send your love and gratitude straight down this love cord connection, straight to her heart. Beautiful. So what you have done is actually created an energetic connection with Mother that is now part of your energy body blueprint. And you can tap into this anytime to reconnect with her, to keep it activated. There's more I can tell you about it, but I want to make this brief right now. There is a longer meditation teaching about this and really bringing her into all your chakras for healing energy on my website. But I wanted to just guide you through that briefly, just to help us all be held by Mother tonight. All right. So I also want to invite us to send some prayers for a dear friend of the Co-Creators Convergence. Her name is Michelle Ellemeyer. And apparently she participated in 2 of the convergences, and I think you said, Noel, 2015, 2016. And she's, I guess, in hospice, and she's got cancer, and she's in her final days. So any love, any prayers for a really graceful transition, please direct her way from your hearts, of course. Take a moment there. Thank you, Noel. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank Noel and Bob for having me here. It's really an honor to be part of one of your evenings. I did this a number of years ago. I think it was right before we did the first 1,000 Goddesses Gathering on the Washington Mall. So it's wonderful to be back. And I want to just share a little bit more about me for those who don't know who I am. I'm considered a Gaia Mystic and High Priestess. Mother Gaia actually told me it was time for me to call myself a priestess and then a high priestess. And I have a healing practice and I lead events. I have a year-long course that I teach called the Great Mother Love Way. And my work with Mother Gaia really went deep rather quickly in June of 2012, when I was actually diagnosed with lymphoma the first time. And 4 days after my diagnosis, I was already scheduled to meet with a gifted Algonquin medicine man to do a ceremony for Mother. And she had asked that we do this. And this Algonquin man communicates really closely with Mother Gaia. And so he heard the request from her that it was supposed to be the two of us to do the ceremony and asked me if I would do it. And of course I said yes. And then the lymphoma diagnosis came in and I still knew I was going to do the ceremony, even though I was freaking out. And so I drove up to the outskirts of New England and we did the ceremony in a forest. And he said to me just prior to us starting the ceremony, he says, well, I'm going to be bringing Gaia's energy and conscious into your energy body, but I don't know how you're going to disconnect afterwards. And my response to him in the moment was, I'm not really concerned because I know my life is to serve Mother. And what happened was, as soon as the ceremony was over, Mother started talking to me so clearly. It was as if I was having tea with a friend sitting across the table. That's how clear her voice was in my head. And the first thing she said to me was that if I surrendered to her to the extent she was going to ask me to surrender, that she would help me heal from the cancer without needing to work with the doctors. And when she said this to me, of course, I was like, yes, I surrender. Because I was pretty terrified, as you can imagine. I was, afraid of the diagnosis. I was afraid of what was I going to have to do. Were they going to put me in radiation or chemotherapy? And then Mother said, just surrender to me. And all these miracles started happening, where my car went an extra 110 miles on full. When Mother asked me to go 2 weeks later to the coastline, I live in Maryland. So she told me I must go to the ocean and do ceremony. And on the way, when I filled my little VW up full, the gas gauge stayed on full. And after 110 miles, it started to go down normally. And I was watching it going, oh my gosh, this is so weird. First, I was freaking out thinking I was going to have another mechanics bill and I was living off my saving. But then when it started to go down normally, I said to Mother, so you must be doing this. And she goes, this is so you can trust me. I'm taking care of you. Trust me. So there's been numerous other miracles since. And my first book with her, she told me at the beach where she told me basically to do ceremony just about all the time. If I wasn't eating or sleeping, do ceremony. And she gave me the title of a book she wanted me to write with her that summer, which she basically started with me during that 3-day trip to the beach. And that book is Messages from Mother Earth Mother. And those are downloaded messages from her. So when I was at the beach, she gave me the title of the book and the table of contents and the very first message, which is Mother's message to us women. And then a year and a half later, she told me that I was to write the Great Mother Bible. And when she told me that, I really balked at that assignment, so to speak, because I'd said to her, I'm not the one to do a book with the word Bible in the title. And she just kept on saying, you're the one, all you need to do is listen. I said, okay. And we had this deal, I would surrender to her. And by the way, at that time, when she gave me that assignment, I went in for another CT scan and all my lymph nodes were back to normal, other than one that was just slightly larger. And my physician couldn't believe it because I had been avoiding him. He's like, how did you do this? I said, well, a lot of ceremony, emotional work, changed my diet. But yeah, it was completely away from the doctors that happened. So anyway, so then Mother asked me to write the Great Mother Bible. And I knew I had to do it. I had surrendered. And so those conversations started for that book in January of 2014, January 2nd. And the wild thing was that the first voice I started hearing, and Mother was waking me up at 4 in the morning, 4:35 for weeks on end to have these conversations in the morning. I knew it wasn't Mother Gaia who was talking to me, and it was a different energy and a different voice. And this voice introduced herself as the Great Mother, which I interpreted to mean the creatrix within the universal realms. And I have since come to realize it was her, which is really humbling, that she first started talking to me to introduce the book, to introduce, who the Great Mother is. And then she passed it over to Mother Gaia to speak with me. So that book is a series of conversations of me struggling through my life and waking up at 4 or 5 every morning with this conversation with Mother and asking her questions. And so those are my 2 books with Mother. And since then, because that came out in 2015, since then, Mother has continued to give me messages. I have a YouTube channel with Gaia teachings on it. Sometimes I post them on Facebook or on my blog, which is messagesfrommother.org. But she's been giving me assignments also, which is all about helping the new earth birth without it being a book or specific messages. And the first one that she gave me, thank you, Noel, is the 1,000 Goddesses Gathering. And for those of you who know Tree Sisters, Claire Dubois, who's a wonderful, brilliant, visionary woman, talks about this Tibetan prophecy that when 1,000 goddesses or Tibetan Taras unite, this will shift the tone of the planet from fear to compassion. And Claire talks about this as an invitation for women to donate so we can help replant the forest around the world, which is so needed. But when I first read that on Facebook, on one of Claire's pages, I guess the Tree Sisters page, Mother whispered in my ear that I was to organize that in the physical. And I went, oh, okay. And when she gives me these types of assignments, which are not small, my response to her is, and you're going to help me, right? She's like, of course I will. So I thought we were going to do that as an event that was going to be weekend long, with vendors and tickets and, sort of paying for itself. And it was going to be pretty intensive planning, but we were going to do 1,000 Goddesses Gathering in person over a weekend event. But oh no, Mother woke me up in late July of 2016. And we thought we were going to do this a weekend event in 2017. Mother woke me up and said, this needs to happen. This Goddesses Gathering needs to happen in DC before the elections, the 2016 elections. And I was like, I kind of gulped and I went, okay. Okay, well, if this is what you say and I've surrendered, then which weekend, Mother? And she basically, I got up and I looked at the calendar and it was like, boom, that October, the 3rd October of 2016. And that was when I contacted you, Noel, and said, this is what's happening. Mother asked me to organize this. Do you want to help? Because we need a lot of volunteers. We need people on the ground and organizing in all the different ways. And you and Bob were absolute saints. So I can't thank you enough, along with your co-creators community who came. Because you guys played really integral roles. We had so much happening with that event. So for those who know a little bit about the 1,000 Goddesses Gathering that happened on the Washington Mall, there were 2 of them. First was in 2016, and the second was in 2018. Took a break in 2017 because I was still raising money for the next one. And we did high ceremony. We had first year, it was a really beautiful, powerful Oshun High Priestess named Yeye Amileye. And in the midst of that high ceremony, toward the end, a couple of really gifted light workers saw this happen. A huge conduit of white light came into the Washington Mall right where we were and radiated right into the ground. And what I was told by one of these really gifted light workers who saw this, and she was helping to hold space there, she said, this was an incredibly high amount of energy that came in, and she was able to identify it as it came from the great central sun, and it was divine masculine energies that came in, and it radiated deeply into the ground there at and I'm going to get into a little bit of technical stuff here, but if you know of Hawkins scale of frequency, this was registered at about 10,000 Hawkins scale of frequency. And I don't know a whole lot about Hawkins scale of frequency, but most people are operating at a 200, 150 level. The Christed one was at 1,000 Hawkins scale of frequency. For it to be 10,000 is just exponentially huge, as you can imagine. And so what it did was it radiated the ground there, and every one of us who was there, and I don't know, Noel and Bob, you guys probably high the rest of the weekend, if you remember, but everyone was activated. And some people were high for days. Some people felt like they were crawling off of the mall to get back to the metro or get home because the energy was so much. And thank you, Noel. But it cleared a lot of dense energies from a 3-mile radius from where we were standing there on the mall, which meant that all of the federal buildings, the White House, the Capitol building, even the Pentagon received a clearing. And one of the people who was there participating sent me an email 2 weeks later. I'd sent a spiritual energy report out to everybody who registered, because I said, you guys really need to know what was going on. And this is some of what was happening spiritually. She said, I need to contact you because I work in the Pentagon. And since the Thousand Goddesses Gathering, she said, I thought it was me and what I experienced there that day, but now I'm realizing it was the amount of energy that came in. She said, I am noticing so much less shadow masculine energy in the Pentagon since the Thousand Goddesses Gathering. I went, wow, whoa. And it made sense then. This is why Mother wanted this. She wanted us to do high ceremony and have the number of people who are working quietly behind the scenery actually as light workers or cosmic shamans help to hold space so we could achieve that. And I didn't know that, going into it, but I realized that afterwards. So basically, I want to talk a little bit about, ceremony to begin with, because first of all of you who are listening right now or watching, you're all invited to join in these global grids. There's another one coming up in about a month called the Sacred Balance Global Grid. But I want to talk about ceremony kind of in a general way first, because these global grids, which is what the Thousand Goddesses Gathering has evolved into, is the Thousand Goddesses Gathering Global Grid. And by the way, the second time we did it in 2018, another massive conduit of white light came in. It was actually videotaped, and I've yet to see that footage, but I was just talking to the man who videotaped it the other day in an interview, Todd Medina. He goes, I have that somewhere in my archives. Both times a massive conduit of white light came in to the Washington Mall to clear the denser energies, which is needed still. But when we do ceremony, a lot of people don't realize the significance of really good ceremony. When we are calling in our spirit teams, we are actually we're the ground crew for these powerful spiritual ones who need us to invite them in. That's part of universal law. And Mother Gaia is calling for us to do as much ceremony as possible. And it's actually in the Hopi message. These are the times to do everything in ceremony. And by connecting with Mother Gaia in her heart, which we just did with that meditation, and then calling in these spiritual teams, whoever you know is on your spirit team, be they archangels or your ancestors serving the highest good, we're actually inviting them in to activate the sacred space where we are doing ceremony. And then that energy radiates out around the planet. So when you have a global grid of them, it becomes this field of energy around the planet. And what I realized after the second Thousand Goddesses Gathering on the Washington Mall, that we were helping to activate Gaia's oneness grid. And this is a grid of energy around the planet that we humans are responsible for helping to keep activated and amplified. There are other grids of energy around the planet. They all interweave. The nature spirits have their own grid. The ley lines are another grid that run through the physical surface of the planet. The dolphins and the whales have their grids, but we humans are being invited, asked to focus on keeping Gaia's oneness grid fully amplified. And I will also share that those of you who might know Sharon Mackerlane and the Net of Light, they are actually, she calls it the Net of Light. I was told spiritually to call it Mother's Oneness Grid. That is the same grid. So all the people who meditate and pray and focus on the Net of Light with Sharon Mackerlane's work are focusing on the same grid of energy around the planet. So that's what the 1,000 Goddesses Gathering Global Grid has also been helping to do, is keep that amplified, because the higher the resonance is of this grid around the planet, the more we are ushering in the new earth more effectively with ease and grace. We're also helping to clear dense energies that are on the surface of the planet that need to be cleared out. So, so ceremony is, thank you, Noel. So ceremony, we are the ground crew when we do good ceremony. We are the ones supporting Mother Gaia and these spirit teams. We are the conduits. So I got a very specific message from Mother in September last fall to organize another global grid, which is the one coming up on March 20th, the Sacred Balance Global Grid. And the impetus for this was originally a very lovely Dutch man named Dennis Bessies got a vision a year ago to organize, to call for actually drumming circles around the planet, to drum for peace, to drum for healing on 8/8/21. And he rallied so many drumming circles, and other people who work with a lot of other drumming circles rallied with him. So they estimate that close to 35,000 people were drumming for Mother Gaia, for the healing, last August 8th. And I had been in touch with Dennis prior to that date. I was helping him a little bit behind the scenery with some planning and some ideas, and helping him realize, you know, this is Gaia's oneness grid you're supporting, and et cetera, et cetera. So he reached out to me right after they did that in August and said, Mare, I really want the global drumming gatherings to partner with the 1,000 Goddesses Gathering to do something in 6 months. And my first thought was, I was a month and a half away from the 1,000 Goddesses Gathering, which happened again in October 2021. And my first thought was, oh no, I can't do another global grid that fast. You know, I started to freak out, like, oh God, that's so much, it's all the logistics, blah, blah, blah. And Mother's like, take a deep breath. Yes, you can. So we're doing it. And then when I tuned in more, I said, well, what is the focus for this Mother? And what came forward from her was that it is the role of the divine feminine. And the 1,000 Goddesses Gathering is about activating the divine feminine, to vitalize it around the planet, to call in the compassion, you know, to shift the tone of the planet from fear to compassion, which is the Tibetan prophecy. The Mother said this time, the call is for sacred balance between the masculine and the feminine, to call for the rising up of the divine masculine and the divine feminine together. And so that is what we're going to be focusing on March 20th. And Noel put the website there in the chat group. Thanks, Noel, for that. There are ceremony suggestions on the website, which include actually vows that we did a ceremony, a mini ceremony in 2018 on the Washington Mall. That particular 1,000 Goddesses Gathering was made up of a sort of a string of priestesses doing ceremonies. And one of them, you know, that we were invoking Mary Magdalene and the Virgin Mary and Isis. And one of the ceremonies, though, was different, because Mother had said in organizing the 2018 1,000 Goddesses Gathering that we needed to have a divine masculine committee. And so these beautiful men volunteered prior to that event, and we had a ceremony together here at my place just with the men. And actually there were some people who consider themselves non-binary, who were born feminine. They joined the divine masculine team, which was beautiful. And when we got together on the mall then, that October day of 2018, the men held space. The Divine Masculine team held space. They were behind all the 4 altars representing the 4 directions. And a priestess named Diana Melchizedek and her husband Michael flew out from California and led a Divine Masculine knighting ceremony. And what they did was 4 of the men were chosen, because we didn't have time to do all of them because of the brevity of the ceremony. They stepped forward and they each agreed to these vows to step into their Divine Masculine self. And so in the ceremony suggestions for the Sacred Balanced Global Grid are those vows, along with other sort of ceremony suggestions woven in. And what I want to do is actually read to you those vows so you have a sense of them. And I've tweaked them a little for this event coming up, this global grid. So this is the vows, and there are 3 vows for the Divine Masculine. The first one is, do you declare that you will use your strengths and abilities to make this world a more loving and peaceful place? That's vow number 1. The second is, do you declare to stand alongside the Divine Feminine as a protector for the earth and all beings? The third one, do you declare that you will compassionately hold others to a code of conscious behavior which honors all of our sacred earth? So those are the 3 vows. They're very similar to the ones that the men agreed to on the Washington Mall in 2018. And when they agreed to them then, Diana actually had a selenite wand that she used to knight them shoulder to shoulder. When she's led this ceremony in California, prior to that, she actually used a sword, but it was decided that trying to fly with a sword wasn't a good idea from California to Washington, D.C. So she used a selenite rod, and it was so powerful. That was actually when the white conduit of light came in during that afternoon of ceremony. But also what happened was there were tears in the eyes of so many people who were there that day. And some of the women were like on the ground, like kneeling and crying. And one woman went around to each one of the men who agreed to the vows, the 4 who represented all the masculine there, and thanked each one of them, like holding on to their ankles and crying. She was so touched by hearing a man or several men agree to step into their Divine Masculine self. So this is part of what is being invited for everyone who is choosing to do ceremony on March 20th. And the vows have also been tweaked to also have women step forward to do vows. And again, it's up to the choice of each ceremonial leader, wherever the ceremonies are being held around the world. And I'm aware of a number of them, and I've been talking with some of the ceremonial leaders for these events, like one in Auckland, New Zealand, and another in Washington, D.C., et cetera, et cetera. And they're tweaking them. They're tweaking them, or they're choosing to do something kind of different. But the real invitation is to create space, to invite men to feel safe and to rise above their woundedness, as the wounded feminine needs to rise above our woundedness. Because as all of you know, I don't need to tell you this, there's been this dance of energies for thousands of years. And the masculine, the wounded masculine, some call it the shadow masculine, has been too much in control. And again, this is not news to anybody here, but what Mother was telling me in the fall when she said this needs to be sacred balance is that it's the role of the Divine Feminine to invite the Divine Masculine forward from a place of compassion, from a place of holding sacred space and agreeing to be partners and to heal our own woundedness, because the wounded feminine has definitely supported the dynamics that have been playing out for the past few thousand years. Books are written about this. There are a lot of people who train about it, do healings, workshops. I'm not going to get into anything below the surface here with this, because I think you all understand that. But this is going to be a global grid of ceremonies. which means that we're going to be invoking really big spirit teams to support us with this, to really encourage our hearts to open, to embrace the healing, and to find the courage to step forward in our healing process. So having shared that, I want to tell you a little bit about some other aspects of these global grids. One is that this type of work is called subtle activism. And perhaps all of you have heard of that term, or maybe not, but David Nichols did his PhD work on subtle activism. His book is actually called Subtle Activism. And there has been research done when people meditate in a very concentrated way together as a group. It actually raises the vibration of that area. And the Maharishi University, I believe it was, did some research on this, where they asked a group of people to meditate. And this was in an urban area where there was a lot of crime in that part of the city. And it was statistically shown that after they did their meditation for how many hours that day, the amount of crime dropped for the following week in that part of that city. So there was a marked, increase in the spiritual energy that could be, could be measured by Hawkins scale of frequency, actually. But it was definitely noted by the lowering of violence in that area. So when people meditate, when people pray, and we feed it into a grid around the planet, which is why there are meditation calls and prayer circles around the planet, we are feeding into raising the energy on the planet, which is what is really called for right now as we go into full ascension. So part of what I have come to realize is really important with these spiritual grids that I'm being asked to do by Mother is I'm really blessed to work with a group of cosmic shamans. And these are people who work on the spirit planes off planet a lot of time. And I ask for their support to help weave the energies together of all the ceremonies around the planet that make up this global grid, be it the Thousand Goddesses Gathering or the Sacred Balance one coming up. And that helps to really amplify the effectiveness of the grid of ceremonies to support Mother Gaia and Gaia's Oneness grid. So I want to tell you a little bit now about what happened last fall with the Thousand Goddesses Gathering on October 23rd in 2021. Some of these cosmic shamans were monitoring as they were supporting what was going on that weekend. Not only were they helping to call in their spirit teams to help weave the energy to make it more powerful, but they were also really monitoring what was happening. And then other people in my circle of contacts and friends were monitoring as they were doing their ceremonies. And these are people who have the capacity to see spiritually pretty clearly. And this is what they were reporting to me over that weekend. And again, this was taking place because a lot of the people involved in the ceremonies on the ground are people with pretty significant spirit teams, along with the cosmic shamans who were helping. First of all, a couple days before that event happened, or that series of ceremonies on October 23rd, I have a very gifted Dutch friend who is a nature spirit mystic, phenomenally gifted. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a webinar with them right now. We're just going into week 3, called the Nature Spirits Invitation, to help people learn a lot more about the nature spirit realms, how they really exist, what they do, different ones. He got a very clear message about 4 or 5 days before the Thousand Goddesses Gathering that the nature spirits were inviting. They wanted each one of these ceremonies on the ground to invite the wounded nature spirits into their ceremonies so that the wounded ones could get healed. And what was witnessed then by some of these really gifted people is that large numbers of nature spirits were invited and did come in to these ceremonies, did receive a tremendous amount of love and healing, which cleared their woundedness. And they then went off and set up healing stations for other nature spirits around the planet. And if you don't know much about the nature spirits, their role here on the planet is immense. life couldn't exist on Earth without the role of the nature spirits. Every flower, every plant, every tree has a nature spirit connected with it that helps it to work with the energies of the sun and photosynthesize. And so for large numbers of them to be healed during our weekend of ceremonies was just so beautiful and humbling, and it happened. So another thing that happened that weekend, which kind of blew my mind, was months before, when the initial planning started to get initiated for that particular global grid with the 1,000 Goddess Gathering, I kept on hearing messages from Mother about our womb hearts, our womb hearts. I'd wake up in the morning and Mother was like, you need to focus on the womb hearts for the 1,000 Goddesses Gathering global grid this fall. I'm like, okay. And I had heard the term before, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. So I started reading and I started just tuning into Mother. And the guidance was, she started to download a meditation in me that was made into a meditation that's on my YouTube channel about activating your womb heart. And actually men have womb hearts too. And this is a long forgotten spiritual part of our womb space, which is the very core of our being that can be cleared, healed, and activated and connected to Mother Gaia's heart, and then also connected to the creatrix of the universe. So this is what I was guided to create as a meditation. And then Mother also asked me to interview other women who are wisdom keepers in womb healing, womb wisdom, womb healing. And what I came to realize is that very few women have actually heard of the womb heart. These wisdom keepers didn't really know what it was. But we had a really good conversation in our interviews too. So what happened then is that weekend of the ceremonies with 1,000 Goddess Gathering, this is kind of may blow your mind or not, is the unicorns who do exist on the spirit plane. They're multidimensional beings. They went around all over the planet and blessed all the women who were involved in these ceremonies. And there were 175 plus ceremonies in 28 countries. And there were far more, but a lot of them didn't register. The unicorns went around and blessed and brought healing energy into the womb spaces and the womb hearts of all the women involved in the ceremonies around the planet. That blew my mind when I got that report. And that was from a particular woman who works really closely with the unicorns and can see them. And the same woman said, you know, the queen of the unicorns really loves you, Mare. I'm like, oh my God, I was very touched by that. So in addition, there were many, many angelic groups who were supporting us around the planet. People were invoking them. And then another report came from another cosmic shaman, because she could see off planet. She said there are so many councils of beings off planet that are extending way out into the multidimensional realms in the universe, who are watching and, you know, providing support from a distance, but they're keenly watching what was happening that weekend, because they are also committed as far out multidimensional as you can imagine. As I understand it, they're very committed to seeing Earth reach full ascension. And from what I understand, when we reach full ascension here on Earth, it will ripple out into the universe at large. And so we had a tremendous amount of support from off planet, plus a lot of cheerleading, so to speak. Again, this is incredibly humbling to report this. And one woman who spent that afternoon, she was guided to do a spiritual journey. She went into ceremony, but she knew a couple days in advance that she needed to do a spiritual journey. And what she witnessed on the spirit plane, she sent me a beautiful long email. It was so beautiful. She witnessed how Mother Gaia was dancing in ecstatic joy on the very top of the planet as tremendous number of angels of pink light came in, each carrying large pink glowing crystals. The angels were guided to place these healing crystals in the ground around the earth, wherever women had been harmed, disrespected, or made to feel shame. Huge. And then this woman witnessed far more. She saw the creatrix even come in. And the creatrix started pouring, the great mother of the universe started pouring white light over the planet. And another group of white light angels came in to weave the energies of all the ceremonies together into a glowing pulsating grid of energy. And by the time her journey was starting to end, she said the whole earth was enfolded in a beautiful, living, pulsating rainbow aura. Again, people were sending me messages for days after that weekend. Some of them were sending me messages, and these are people I didn't know at all, but they had found out about the opportunity to do ceremony. They were in different countries. And so they did join the grid, do ceremony, and they were just profoundly shifted. They experienced big healings because of their participating. And one woman in Germany actually messaged me, sent me an email. She said, I had to have my message translated. I don't write English or speak English. She said, I have gone through so much of a healing for the past few days since the Thousand Goddesses Gathering. She goes, I want to know who you are. Oh my gosh. I said, well, this is who I am. Mother's been brought into my energy body and she keeps me busy, basically. So I wanted to give you some of this background because this is what can play out that Mother has in plan, along with the other spiritual councils that I have come to know that she works with very closely. And I don't even know, I only know the tiniest piece of it. I know there was far more that happened spiritually or multidimensionally. So this is the vision for March 20th, 2020. And all of you are invited to participate at whatever level you want to. And I know some people who are going to do ceremony, and they're really going to be doing it, focusing on their own inner balance, healing their wounded masculine, wounded feminine self within, to come into more of a higher aspect of both, of oneness within, because this is all about healing into the oneness. And at some point in the future, when we are much farther along on this path to ascension, we're not even going to be focusing on divine masculine polarity. We're going to be beyond that. We're going to be totally into we're one, and we embody the one. We embody the masculine and feminine together as oneness. But we're not there yet. We have a lot of healing to do. And this is what Mother's calling for with this. So on that note, I would love to open it up for discussion. I could keep on talking, but I've been talking a lot. Questions. There is more I can share, but I just want to open it up.
Okay, so screen.
Okay. So I invite anyone, you can turn on your video if you like, and or raise your hand or put a question in the chat. Any comments, questions? This has been beautiful, Mare. I really appreciate the update and all the good work. And Dr. Pamela, you have want to unmute and join the conversation here?
Sure. What a beautiful, beautiful message that you conveyed. It was very touching.
Aww.
And I do like the idea of subtle activism. I have never considered myself an activist because my focus has always been inside. But I think in sharing the wisdom that comes through, it is a form of subtle activism. So that was kind of interesting to me. And I'm also very tuned into the divine feminine as merged with the divine masculine, because if we're all inside, then nothing happens outside, but what we express inside certainly is then conveyed in the outside world. So I would just be curious as to how you receive the guidance that you receive, just out of curiosity.
How I receive it? Well, I hear it. I'm a clairaudient.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I will also say that a lot of times I get ripples of energy through me. So I receive a lot of information by feeling the energy. Like I just had a healing session with a young woman in California. She wanted to connect more with her spirit team. And so I did an hour-long session with her. And I invited her to call in specific members of her spirit team, which I helped her figure out in a previous session, some of them at least. And I can feel these spiritual beings come in. So that's one of the gifts I have. So it's clairsentient. I don't see so much. Although sometimes I can tell when a spiritual being is smiling. I get that sense of a beautiful, happy grin beaming that happy energy on somebody or on me. But it's really hearing. That's where my gifts are. And Mother really does have a way of getting me at 5 a.m. or 5:30 going, this is what I want to have happen. Thank you. You're going to do it.
Your assignment, should you choose to accept.
Yes.
Actually,
Thank you.
the current thing I'm hearing from her these days, because I'm juggling a lot, because I'm in the process of forming a nonprofit called the Great Mother Love Way, and I'm redoing my website completely with a web designer, and there's all this stuff going on, is I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I don't know about anybody else in this group, but I for years have had this propensity for waking up feeling anxious, like, oh God, there's so much to do. How am I going to do with this? So now I wake up and Mother's like, the first thing I hear is, we've got this. So that's her current foremost message, is just keep on listening and we've got this.
Thank you. And I do agree that if we allow Spirit, Mother Earth, whomever, to work through us, and we show up as the hands, heart, and the voice of the divine, then it is easy and effortless. So
Yes.
Yeah.
that's excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's just getting out of the mind and the fear thoughts and all that. But thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Wayne Dyer always said that he would get woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, it's kind of like I guess the brain can take a little vacation or something. And then, you know, we don't have a lot of going on. And that's when he would get all his messages, like 3 o'clock every morning.
Yeah. The veil is thinner then. And that's when, you know, the monks and the nuns in the monasteries and the convents, wherever, they get up really, really early, because that's part of their spiritual practice for one, but the veil is thinner and it's easier to be open. I don't like getting up super early in the morning. I'm better at it, you know, when Mother, you know, like get up. But yeah.
I think there's a lot less electrical interference as well. Not as many iPads and all that kind of stuff turned on. You know, there's maybe, you know, less
No,
interference.
it's true.
that way.
Well, even when you think about the collective society around where you live, if it's the middle of the night, people are sleeping, most people. So that energetics of all that human consciousness is quieter.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Olivia, did you want to join the conversation here? Thank you, Dr. Pamela.
Thank you.
Sure. This
Go
is
to Dr. Olivia.
wonderful. This is wonderful, really. Now, can you hear me?
You're kind of faint. I'm gonna.
Yeah, you're a little soft.
What I'm going to try to do is take off my my husband is no longer playing his trumpet. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Much better.
That's louder, better.
I just wanted to say that it's so wonderful to hear you share about this, because I woke up to the goddess a few years ago and the Great Mother when I was studying with Dr. Christine Page. I don't know if you know her, but she's a medical intuitive that I trained with, and she's
Beautiful. I
very
know her
much
name.
tuned into the elementals, and she's been a mentor for me and a friend. And what I also love is that, you know, she's been teaching us how to go into these portals with the elementals and with the different dimensions by going into trees. But the other thing that's really beautiful is that for years, we have this elders gathering. This will be our 38th year consecutively that Venerable Dahani invites these wisdom keepers from all over the world, and also scientists, to come together and dance and pray and share how things work.
Right.
What we can do. And what I remember hearing when I first went to elders, I mean, I've been going practically since the beginning, the women and the men of wisdom keepers would say, what is going to save the planet is when the rising of the feminine when we come back into partnership, where many of the tribes, like the Cherokee, which
Mhm.
Venerable is a 27th lineage holder of, many of the tribes are matrilineal, which means that the women were the spiritual directors and the men in partnership carried out the ceremonies and, you know, the different spiritually directed actions for the tribe. But it was, everybody was in it together.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that you're finding a way to bring this activation right down to earth and to also welcome these wonderful male, masculine parts of ourselves, because we all have male and female and binary or whatever, non-binary. But I think it's really powerful. And if we wanted to be part of the March 20th ceremony, are you going to be putting on your website or something a special prayer that you want us to do or ceremony?
Well, that's yes. Yeah, on the page, excuse me, on the website, sacredbalance.earth is a page called Ceremony Suggestions.
Okay.
And that's where the vows are that I read out loud. The
Oh,
vows
beautiful.
are in there. And you know, and on other ceremonial sort of pieces, but you in particular, and probably people in your circles,
Yeah.
especially with Venerable Yahoo, you guys know how to do ceremony.
Yes.
But this particular focus is to call for the healing of the wounded
Right.
masculine
Right.
and
That's what
wounded
I
feminine.
understood, is to help the partnership, to help the wounding, so there can be that
Yes. Yeah.
connecting. Aha.
Thank you. So
Oh,
thank you.
wonderful.
Yeah. Noel and Bob have just drawn up the website, and you see there's
Right.
ceremony suggestions. So it's all right there.
Wonderful.
And if you also, thank you. That's great, you guys.
Thank you.
And please register so we can put you on the map. There we go. See, there are the vows. And then if you scroll down further, are the vows for the feminine.
Perfect.
And
Thank you. Oh, it's
no,
beautiful.
thank you. And
I love unicorns.
yeah.
I always have unicorns coming to me in my dreams and my visions.
Wow, you are very connected. So if you scroll down, whoever, Noel or Bob, you'll get to the map. There's an interactive map. Yeah, there you go. So this is where everybody registers. We will put you on the map. And if the event that you're doing is open to the public, then we'll mark that. So you can click on any one of those nodes and see if they're public or private.
Ah, okay.
Oh,
Great.
Like that one is not public, so it just says location. But if you go to one of the others, especially in Europe, there are a lot of drumming circles. The drumming groups are just really gung-ho. Having Dennis Vesey's and Jim Petruzzi, actually, I'm working closely with Jim. Okay, one of these has a live event. Click on it all the way. I think maybe that's the issue. Like click it. There you go, public event. So if you click on that, it will take you right to that event page where you can register and with that particular group and go join them.
Wow. Look, 661.
Wonderful.
Oh, the drumming circles are huge. They're just, I mean, this is just taken off. And what they did on 8/8/2021 was huge. And they're gung-ho now to focus on sacred balance. And the beautiful thing is that a lot of them are going to be doing high ceremony in the, you know, in the process of starting off their drumming circles. So, I mean, there are going to be hundreds gathering on a beach outside of The Hague for one huge sort of circle and ceremony. It's just really fun. It's exciting.
And it'll go on all day.
Yep.
Like
It's
all
all
the
day.
time zones, everything.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
You know, it's funny because the ones that Dennis is calling for in his circles, he's saying 11/11, but it doesn't work to do that. It hasn't for me with the Thousand Goddesses gatherings. There's no time on the Thousand Goddesses, excuse me, on the Sacred Balance website itself. It's whenever in the day you feel called to gather and do ceremony and drum if you want to drum also. And it is going to be rippling. It's starting out in New Zealand. That's the first location. You know, the sun rises there first, and it's just
Right.
going to ripple across the planet. And the cosmic shamans that I work with are going to be connecting all of it. I'm really excited to see what happens spiritually, how my cosmic shaman friends are going to be reporting that weekend.
Go ahead, Chloe.
Marvelous.
Wow.
And I also, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mare.
Well, I wanted to also respond a little bit to Olivia, because this is a busy year for me. We're all busy these days. There's so much to do. I have been doing ceremonies, quiet ones for the most part, called to me to do by some of the Native American ancestors on the land. And this started in Australia when I was there to do an event north of Sydney in an area near Coffs Harbour. I have a good friend there that I worked with many years ago doing international environmental education work. She and I were supposed to do a workshop together on connecting with Mother Gaia. And everything, you know, like the technical problems you were just having at the beginning of our lovely gathering here. Well, let's just say that the planning for that workshop got weirder and weirder and weirder. And when my friend picked me up at the airport, she's organized hundreds of events. She picked me up. One of the first things she said was, I have never been so challenged organizing an event. I went, oh, I said, welcome to my life. Sometimes it's like this. Well, what happened was the reason that it got so tested was because Mother Gaia and the ancestors, the Aboriginal ancestors there, did not want a workshop. And 2 mornings, and I don't know if the energy is coming in already. If anybody is sensitive to energy, the ancestors are coming in. What happened was 2 mornings before we were supposed to do the workshop, I was woken up at 5 in the morning, 5:30, and I got a very clear message. We are not to do a workshop. We are to do a ceremony to invite the local people of European descent to start to plan how they were going to make amends to the Aboriginal village that got poisoned by arsenic in their flour in like 1910, 1920. And nobody in that community of my skin color, my descent, had done anything to make amends to the Aboriginal people there. I mean, there were little children that wandered for miles to the nearest village because they didn't eat the arsenic, and they told of seeing everyone fall asleep and they didn't wake up. Boy, the energy is really getting high on my end right now. If anybody's feeling that, it's the ancestors. So when I did that, it was very powerful, and a committee came together in that community who were part of our gathering, because we did ceremony that day. There was an Aboriginal man who was with us, and then a group of them started to meet to really make a more serious plan of how are we going to really make amends in a proper way to the Aboriginal people of this area. So then I came home and 4 or 5 months later, I was approached by another ancestor on the land here, and I live in Maryland, and it was a Tuscarora ancestor, I believe. And I was able to feel him and hear him. And he asked me to organize another ceremony for the native ancestors here in Maryland along the Potomac River. So about 20 of us gathered on the Potomac River, and we did a ceremony with sacred water and apologies, and this is what the ancestor wanted. And some of the people who came to that ceremony could really see what was going on spiritually, and a lot was happening spiritually, and it was beautiful. And then it happened again this fall at another property here in Maryland, where an ancestor came forward in a huge park and asked me, and my friend's property abutted the park. So I'm like, we have to do ceremony. We have to do an apology ceremony. So then I was driving my car about a week later into Baltimore, because I still go to my dentist in Baltimore. And this ancestor, I started thinking about what was playing out. This ancestor, I could feel it in the car, asked me to organize a global grid of apology ceremonies to the indigenous peoples around the world. Oh, somebody's just joining. So that's going to be happening August 7th of 2022, with the Global Drums Gathering supporting it. And every time I talk about this, the ancestors come in and they're just really looking forward to this because it's going to be very healing. Go ahead, Olivia.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that the Sunray Peace Village is also a non-government association of the United Nations since 1992. And I believe that that date is the date that the UN holds an Indigenous celebration or something. It's around that time. If you like,
Wow.
I can find out and see if I can connect
Please.
you
Please.
with our UN rep, because this is something is in my head. You know, I have a lot going on in my head too right now.
Yeah, I can relate. Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, I would love that.
I think it might be wonderful. And you were reading my mind, because I was just asking, we do need this so much in this
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
So thank you for organizing
And
that.
all over. And
All
even
over,
if people
all over.
are in Europe and they can't like speak to,
Right.
there still are ancient indigenous ancestors there, you
Yeah.
know, on the land in different parts of the world, even where they've been westernized for so long.
Right.
Yeah, I could go on and on about that, but I wanted to tell you that because
Wonderful. Thank you.
yeah. And by the way, anyone who wants to donate to support this work is really welcome to do that.
Yeah.
This is a labor of love. I'm really looking forward to having the nonprofit fully launched, but we're not there yet.
Good for you. Yeah.
So,
you.
Mare, why did you select, or why was the equinox, spring equinox, selected?
You know, the equinox is a strong portal of energy. A couple of days before and a couple of days after and the day of. It's a powerful energetic, and the equinox is balance between sunlight and nighttime. And when Dennis approached me in September and said, Mare, I want to do this in 6 months, I was like, equinox, that's the perfect time to do it. The vernal equinox, which I guess is different, autumnal in the Southern Hemisphere. Yeah.
I just want to read a couple comments. Desiree said, years ago, World Puja, she thinks in Princeton, also were able to check for changes that took place with prayer.
Yeah.
And also, she wanted to thank you for all that you do. And when she was studying at Unity Village, one of the classes did an activation of marrying the feminine and the masculine.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
it was amazing. So, and also one other question, are you having any fundraising with the silk scarves? Quite a few of our group bought the silk scarves.
Yeah, that's right.
It is possible that we might do more of those. It's pretty labor intensive. So I didn't do it. We didn't do it last year. Some of my key volunteers, like one moved to Costa Rica, and, you know, and then we had COVID, so we weren't getting together. It's possible. I haven't decided that yet. They are fun. Actually, I could be wearing one right now.
Yeah,
and
I
some
must have
really,
one.
yeah, a lot of people feel the energy in them because we dye them with the sacred water. We hand dye them. It's really fun.
Yeah, they're
So
really
it's possible.
beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Very popular.
Thanks for reminding us of that, Desiree.
Yeah.
I did have another question. I think I had a technical difficulty with the
How
question.
do you work this Zoom thing?
Let me see. You said earlier, I did want to make actually a positive comment. I saw read an article today that there is a gentleman who is retracing the Trail of Tears, the actual route.
Oh, wow.
That said that so many of the colonists have tried to obfuscate, or just
That was the guy in Alabama who's been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I read that article.
of course,
Wow.
He's really doing all the Cherokee trails, not just the Trail of Tears, but all through Tennessee, the Carolinas, Western Carolina, Northern Alabama.
Oh, they're historic trails that they use.
Yeah, the historic trails of the Cherokee. Yeah, and
You know,
he has handed it all over to university and to a couple of other organizations. I
wow,
was researching that today. They've mapped
wow.
it all. They've used modern tech. He's used modern technology and GIS maps and everything else to actually map where all the Cherokee trails were in their towns and communities and villages and things like
Mm-hmm,
that. All of which, almost all of which is gone.
mm-hmm.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, my Algonquin friend, he has he hasn't done what that man's done, but he has done a lot of his research on these former trails, and a lot of them are main roads. You know, and he taught me that a lot of the roads that are just two numbers, like Route 15 here in Maryland, was a Native American trail. So they've been usurped into our roads, which makes sense in a way. But that's a voluminous amount of work, especially to also then really research the Trail of Tears. You know, if I were to do something like that, I would be calling on my friends to do land healings the whole way, because so many died, and what a lot of people don't realize is how many places where there are still Native ancestors who are stuck here because of how they died and they weren't able to pass over fully. So I have friends that work on clearing that. And actually, I'll share a little story. It has to do with ancestors and waiting for apologies. I was talking with some friends just the past 2 days about an area in California where there had been it must have been a small massacre. I don't think it was a really big one, but there was all sorts of really dense energies there. And finally, the people were able to tune in when they got called in to help that there had been a massacre there. And then the right spirit teams were called in to invite the ghosts, you know, who were stuck there to finally release and go fully to the light. But one particular warrior who was in the spirit didn't want to leave until there was an apology from the current resident of the land. Ooh, and I'm telling you guys that I feel all this energy. This gives you a sense of how powerful it is when we do apologies.
Well, Mayor, I want to tell you that, you came to one of our Unity Earth calls on Wednesday, a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago. You really need to come to this next one because it's a big organizing for our June event. But more people need to know about, like you to come and do the invitation for March 20th,
Yeah, I will. Okay, thank you for nudging me because I'm on the emails now. And I wanted to tell you, and I'll just make this public here, is that Ben Bowler and Jim Petruzzi and I have been meeting to figure out how this Sacred Balance Global Grid can be a unity event on March 20th. And we're honing in on which particular ceremony will be live cast. And it's looking like it's going to be a really small one between Jim Petruzzi and a very gifted woman who is in Switzerland. And I'll be speaking during part of it. So I wanted to reach out to you and thank you for that, because I'm getting to know Ben a little bit better and Jim better too. And so things are evolving. But yeah, now that you're really formally inviting me, I am juggling a lot right now, but I'll be there. I know this big,
awesome.
Unity Week in June is huge. It's really huge.
So we
Yeah,
have
it
calls
starts
every
June 18th.
Yeah, June 18th. We meet every Wednesday night, typically at 6 Eastern time, but this once a month there'll be a planning session for World Unity
At
Week,
5,
a planning
yeah.
assembly, and that next week is that planning assembly, so it starts an hour earlier at 5
Yeah.
Eastern.
Yeah, and I actually went to another one of the Unity meetings with Ben and the whole group. It's such an incredibly impressive group of people.
Indeed
It's,
it is.
it's, yeah,
Yeah.
it sure is.
It's just like wow.
It's like you're in Candyland of,
Yeah,
of
makes
Yeah,
sense.
I have to like almost have a dictionary with me when I read people's chats and what they're saying. It's brilliant and really
Indeed.
visionary and real movers and shakers. I'm humbled to even be part of it.
Oh, it's wonderful. All are welcome. All are invited.
Indeed.
Thank you.
And we're just joined late in the party by Father Joe, our dear friend in Wisconsin. Hey, Father Joe.
Hey, Father Joe.
And he has a real heart for the indigenous. and also the Latina population. And he runs a Catholic worker house in Wisconsin.
We're about to welcome a Native American to our board, so I'm very excited about that. That we'll have someone representing the indigenous people on our board. I have a question to everybody. That term, the Trail of Tears, is that a generic word that applies to all tribes who had to leave their homeland to go to reservations, blah, blah, blah? Or is it just one area, Bob?
It's not just
Olivia's
one.
got it.
Yeah, Olivia, you want to answer?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
For example, here in Wisconsin, the Oneidas came from upper state New York and settled here in Oneida, Wisconsin. Now, was that considered, why did they leave? Why did they leave their homeland led by an Episcopalian priest? And then the Menominees, who I believe we are right now, our Catholic worker house is on Menominee land, and they had to go to a reservation up in the woods up north. So was that considered a Trail of Tears? I don't know.
Olivia, if you want to speak,
I
you're
can speak to that.
Oh, go
if you
ahead, Mare.
want. And Olivia, if you want to share too, it's my understanding there is one official Trail of Tears. And I don't know the exact year. It was 1850s or some, maybe, but this was a concerted effort on the part of, it was actually, I think, a mandate from the president to have the native peoples rounded up from the Smokies, and mostly Cherokee, all Cherokee, and to move them to Oklahoma. And the percentage of them who died was huge. And that's considered the Trail of Tears. But what you're referring to is, it's a collective Trail of Tears all over the continent, Canada. I mean, Australia. It's like, it's this perpetuation of horrific treatments of Indigenous people. I mean, you guys know all that. But that's considered like the Trail of Tears.
Right. Yeah. I think also, though, what you're saying is that there are these really uprising of many people, particularly in Canada. They've done some beautiful work with the apology and reparations and recognizing the tribes. And one thing that happened in Massachusetts this year, which I'm very, very, very glad about, is that the Wampanoag, who are in Cape Cod area, during the past administration, they tried to take away their tribal rights and say that they weren't a tribe. And Biden just restored that, or this administration. So I think that it's really important, Mare, that you're bringing this to our attention, because we're talking a lot about Black Lives Matter, and that's really, really important. And also Indigenous Lives Matter. So thank you so much for raising that. I'm curious, who is the Algonquin friend that you have? Because we have a wonderful Algonquin, a wisdom keeper, who was Mad Bear's student, and who now carries on his, medicine, etc. His name is Mike Bastine. He's Algonquin.
Yeah.
Do you know him?
I don't know Mike Bastine. My friend is Evan Pritchard.
Oh, Evan Pritchard, sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Mike Bastine and Evan are really good friends. I think.
No,
yeah.
Bob and I have been doing study with the, I guess it's a podcast called This Land. It's an award-winning podcast, and it is by a Cherokee woman. And there is an act that the government passed in the 70s called the ICWA, Indian Child Welfare Act. And it has to do with, it gives tribal rights if a child comes up for adoption, that the tribe, if it can be adopted within the tribe first, then they get first, to keep their family, their tribe together. And religious zealots that are white are challenging that, and it is in front of the Supreme Court at this time. And what's really destructive about this action, it's really not about the children at all. What it is an attack on the indigenous sovereignty, attacking in the guise of caring about the children. But once they take away those tribal rights for them to have their own children, then they'll go after the mineral rights, they'll go after the casino rights, they'll go after all the rights. LakotaLaw.org with Daniel Sheehan, who is a American hero as far as I'm concerned. They do a lot keeping on top of this issue, but it's probably going to go in front of the Supreme Court, and a lot of ceremony to pray on that one.
Indeed.
Yes.
It was
yes.
two seasons started in 2018, went through late last year. This podcast, the second season is what Noel's talking about, and the first season was about Father Joe, the Trail of Tears, and the land grabs and the movement, the forced migration from the Southeast United States to Oklahoma, and something that went all the way to the Supreme Court in 2019, which was would have taken away the rights of
The tribal lands.
The tribal lands. In 40% of the state of Oklahoma is still tribal lands, and although the folks that pump the oil out of the ground in that area have been ignoring that all these years. It's a fascinating, very well researched podcast. We learned a lot.
Excuse me, Bob, would you put that, how we get to that podcast? What is it called so that we can
it's
find
right there in the chat. Just type in
chat.
Oh, great. Sorry.
This Land podcast. It's on Crooked. I did a
Crooked
typo.
Media.
Crooked
Right.
Media, and you'll find it easily.
Crooked Media, thank you.
I just want to speak to something, because I've been really blessed to study for 26 years with different Indigenous elders. And, I'm not the only one who thinks like this, believes this, but with this new earth coming in, we have to tap into the wisdom of these Indigenous cultures for us to really make the shifts we need to make
Right.
to birth this new earth. Because they hold the wisdom on so many planes. And, this is just, it's like Mother Gaia's right now. She's like, say this, so part of it is acknowledging them and apologizing to them and opening back up to what they have to share. Because we need their wisdom badly.
Absolutely,
you
their
got Olivia's
connection.
hands up.
Okay, Olivia, we'll have one more comment from you, and then we will close with Mare. Will close us out and tell us how to contact her and what she's got coming up. So go ahead, Olivia.
I just wanted to say, Mayor, that this year's Elders Gathering in Lincoln, Vermont is also going to be online as well as in person, COVID permitting. The theme that Venerable Dahani has issued forth and the elders are going to be coming with the scientists to talk about is land. So we are very interested in this podcast. I'm going to check it out. Thank you, Bob and Noel. And Mayor, I would love to stay in touch with you if I might,
Please.
because we're on the same wavelength and I'm so joyful to be in this circle tonight. Thank you so much.
Feeling energy on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mare.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's been so wonderful to reunite with you, and look forward to being part of the Global Grid on March 20th.
Please.
And it'd just be wonderful if you just want to close us out and let people know what you got coming up. I know you do a lot more than just a Global Grid, your other teachings, workshops, and how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'll just share a little bit about what's come up for me. I've already shared a lot of it. And then I want to just thank the spirit teams who have supported us all evening too. So if you want to find out about what I'm doing, my website is marecromwell.com. I am starting up the Great Mother Love Way year-long course again in late April. And if you really want to learn a lot about the nature spirits, it's not too late to join up for our webinar, which is naturespiritfun.earth. And my Dutch friend Cornelis Jan Couperus is amazingly gifted with his rapport with these sacred beings. So you're welcome to check that out and let me know if you want to join now. We'll send you the replay so you can catch up. And then, of course, the Sacred Balance Global Grid is coming up in a month, plus a few days. I'm busy. I'm not doing any smaller webinars right now. I'm just working on my new website and launching a nonprofit in the midst of all this. So having said all that, oh, that's right. Thank you. Desiree is doing the Nature Spirit course. People are having all sorts of spiritual awakenings doing this course. It's amazing what's coming forward. Gnomes are showing up for people. It really is a powerful awakening. And the nature spirits are really reaching out to us because they want us humans to come home to them as Mother Gaia is calling us home to her. So enough on that. Okay. Thank you. Honoring all the sacred ones who held space for us. Mother Gaia, Creator, all the spirit teams, including the nature spirits, and the ancestors. Thank you, honoring you. We are ending our sacred circle here, but we ask for your continued blessings and love and all else that we may need to serve our highest good for divine plan alignment. Aho. Thank you, Noel and Bob.
Aho.
Aho.
I feel so blessed that you fit us into your schedule. So thank you everyone for
course.
coming, and we're here every Thursday night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love and hugs to all of you.
Peace and blessings all.
Good night.